Gopiyanavalava Girivaranari Jaya Gopiyanavalava Girivaranari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari
Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari. Thank you, Matthias Prabhu. Sharyam Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Pariguracharya Ashtradarshi Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sharyam Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Pariguracharya Ashtradarshi Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Natakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Hridayat Nasta Praisa Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 4, Texts 11 and 12. Shri Shuka Vacha Evam Shaptva Kato Agastyo Bhagavan Nipa Sanugaha Indradyumno Api Rajashir Trishtam Tad Upadarayan Shri Shuko Vacha Evam Shatva Gato Gastyo Bhagavan Niprasanugaha Indradyumnopi Rajashir Trishtam Tad Upadarayan Shri Shuko Vacha Evam Shatva Gato Gastyo Bhagavan Niprasanugaha Indradyumnopi Rajashir Tristam Tad Upadaran Shri Shuko Vacha Evam Shatva Gato Gastyo Bhagavan Nipasanugaha Indradyumnopi Rajarshir Trishtam Tad Upadarayan. Chad? Oh, you already went? Okay. Anyone online?
Shri Śukadeva Evam Shapagato Gastyo Bhagavan Dripasanugaha Indradyumno Pirajarshir Tishtam Tadu Padarayan.
Anyone else?
Śukadeva Evam Satma Gato Gasto Bhagavan Nipa Sanuga Indradyumna Pi Rajarshid Dishtam Tad Upadharayan.
Thank you for all those that chanted. Shri Shukadeva Gosvāmī said, Evam, thus, Shapva, after cursing, Gataha, left that place, Agastya Muni, Bhagavan, so powerful, Nripa, O king, Sanugaha, with his associates, Indradyumna, King Indradyumna, Api, also, Rajarshi, although he was a Rajarshi, Dishtam, because of past deeds, Tat, that curse, Upadarayan, considering, Apanaha, Okay, never mind. That's the last one. Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued, My dear king, after Agastya Muni had thus cursed King Indradyumna, the Muni left that place along with his disciples. Since the king was a devotee, he accepted Agastya Muni's curse as welcome, because it was the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although in his next life he got the body of an elephant, because of devotional service he remembered how to worship and offer prayers to the Lord. Purport. This is the unique position of a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although the king was cursed, he welcomed the curse, because the devotee is always aware that nothing can happen without the desire of the Supreme Lord. Although the king was not at fault, Agastya Muni cursed him. And when this happened, the king considered it to be due to his past misdeed. Tate nukampam shamanaha. Bhagavatam 10:14-8. This is a practical example of how a devotee thinks. He regards any reverses in life as blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, instead of being agitated by such reverses, he continues his activities of devotional service. And Krishna takes care of him and enables him to be promoted to the spiritual world, back to Godhead. If a devotee has to suffer the reaction of his past misdeeds, the Supreme Lord arranges for him to be given only a token of these reactions. And very soon he is freed from all the reactions of material contamination. One should therefore adhere to devotional service, and the Lord himself will very soon see to one's promotion to the spiritual world. A devotee should not be disturbed by unfortunate circumstances, but must continue his regular program, depending on the Lord for everything. The word upadarayan, considering, is very significant in this verse. This word indicates that a devotee knows what is what. He understands what is happening in material, conditional life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurn Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhani Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Priya Vancha Kalpatribhyascha Kripasanibhyevacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in material existence, there will be problems, there will be reversals in life, and most of the problems will come when we least expect them. And because one is a devotee, it doesn't mean that life will be smooth. I was distributing books, and tattoos are very prominent now. And this one person, I saw he had a picture of Bruce Lee on his arm. You guys know who Bruce Lee? Yeah. And so I asked him, what is that quote on your arm? And he said, Bruce Lee, he said, don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. So I thought that was nice, So I introduced the books to him, and I said, you look like a person of character. It looks like you know what morality and ethics are. He said, I like to try to be a good person. So I gave him 2 books, Easy Journey to Other Planets, and also the Journey of Self-Discovery. The reason why I gave him a small book is he was a little scientific-minded. And The Journey to Other Planets, I think, is such a wonderful book. That was Kanai Balai's first book, actually. Easy Journey to Other Planets. And I like to recall Kanai pastime. He would argue with the devotees all the time, every time he would come to the temple. And then some devotee gave him Easy Journey, and he never read it, So one day he said, he's right, why don't I just read it? And then he read it, and then it made sense to him. And then he said when he came back, he came with folded hands, and he was very apologetic to the devotees. So one book changed Kanai Balai's life. And if we look at the exceptional devotees who dealt with difficulties, such as Prahlad Maharaj, the Pandavas, Haridas Thakur, and even our own Srila Prabhupada, they set wonderful examples for us. And did they give up? Did Srila Prabhupada say, oh, I'm too old, my spiritual master gave me an impossible mission, I'm not going to go. No, he actually went. And he had firm faith in the holy name, as well as his spiritual master's order. And sometimes even the Lord himself, he goes through reversals. In the Ramayana, on the day of the coronation of Lord Ramchandra, he was supposed to be the king of Ayodhya. But then the same day, his stepmother, Kaikeyi, he influenced Dasharat Maharaj, Lord Ramchandra's father, to banish Lord Ram to the forest for 14 days. Does anyone know who actually was the cause of this? Huh? Who? Manthara. She was the hunchback maidservant of Kaikeyi. Yeah, it says one who conspires or one who steers, yeah. So Manthara started poisoning the queen's mind. If Ram becomes the king, you'll be treated like a maidservant. Bharat will be treated like a slave. And although Queen Kaikeyi, she understood that this was not false, due to bad association, she fell for it. So the Lord was banished to the forest. And most people, they don't understand that based on our past actions, we receive the proper situation or results in this life. The example is Vidura. Vidura is none other than Yamaraj himself. But he was cursed by Mandaka Muni to become a Shudra. So what happened was that Mandaka Muni's previous life, he had a thorn. Srila Prabhupada explains it like this. And he was piercing the rectum of ants. So in this life, Mandaka Muni, he was receiving a similar punishment. And he started questioning and criticizing Yamaraj. He said, for a small thing, you punish me with this great painful reaction. And then he said, you are not fit to be either a Kshatriya or a Brahmana, so in your next life you become a Shudra. So then this is Vidura's past life. And Srila Prabhupada explains that this is nature's law. It's very strict. Just like every day we are walking and we may step on an ant, and the reactions will be there. So he said this world is very dangerous. Srila Prabhupada, he also used this example that in India, he has seen with his practical own experience. There was a merchant, he was very wealthy. He was signing millions of checks, but he was illiterate. He couldn't read and he couldn't write. So he would ask the gentleman, please sign your name here. He couldn't write out his checks. And then, yeah, sorry. And then and Srila Prabhupada, he said he's a millionaire. He has so much wealth, but he's illiterate, And then he explained that in England there was a big doctor, very intelligent, highly educated. But Srila Prabhupada said there was not even a good utensil in his home. So he said he was very poor. So despite one's education, despite one's endeavors, according to what you're destined to, you cannot have more. And then Srila Prabhupada, he says the devotees, we're not getting paid for our devotional service. This is what do they call it? a voluntary movement. And then Srila Prabhupada, he said, rather they bring money to the temple and they're happy. And then he said, karmis, they're earning salary, but they're unhappy. You know, in book distribution, I get this question a lot, you know, especially some from people from India, you know, why do you do this, you know? And then someone asked me at the harbor, how much do you get paid for this? I said, I don't get paid for this. And he blew a circuit. He said, well, how could you stand here for many hours, you know, speaking to strangers, random people, and not get paid for it? And that's why I love what I do. And I said, these books, they change lives. And out of frustration and anger, he kind of scolded me and he left. And then a few, maybe an hour or so, he came back and he actually apologized. He said, thank you for your work. He said, I cannot do this, you know. So the devotees were happily engaged in Krishna's service. And Srila Prabhupada, he says, there are difficulties in practicing Krishna consciousness, but we cannot give them up. And he uses the example of hot sugar cane juice. You know, hot sugar cane juice, it's a little uncomfortable to take, you know, because it's so hot. But since it's so sweet, we can't give it up. And maybe some of us, we've known devotees that have so-called left the movement or, you know, stopped practicing Krishna consciousness, but they come back, you know. Whether it's kirtan, whether it's association, or even whether it's prasadam, they keep coming back. Because devotional service or Krishna consciousness is like hot sugar cane juice. When I went to Mayapur with Maharaj a few years ago, I was addicted to sugar cane, you know. And my cousin, he actually, in his backyard, he grew sugar cane shoots here. Has anyone ever tasted sugar cane here? Mayapur. How about here in the States? They're not, you?
Some restaurants, Indian restaurants,
Bhakti Bhaktal actually grew some cans at his house, and he offered them with the fruit offerings. We all had little pieces.
Yeah. It's so nice, you know. Me and this one brahmachari, his name is Bainam. Whenever we had some Lakshmi, we go to the sugar cane seller and we'll just ask him. And you know, the first few times he gave it to us because he understood we were brahmacharis, you know. And then the second or third time we actually offered him some Lakshmi. So in the purport, it says that since the king was a devotee, he accepted Agastya Muni's curse as welcome because it was a desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Mahabharata, there are two characters, Dhritarashtra and Yudhishthira Maharaj. Dhritarashtra was the blind king. He was blind since birth, but he was also blind to spiritual realization. He did not take the good instructions from Bhishma Dev Vidura, as well as his own father, Vyasadeva. You know, the Kurus, they were so envious of the Pandavas. And since Dhritarashtra could not give up his affection toward Duryodhana, he divided the kingdom, Hastinapur. And he gave this tract of land to the Pandavas. I forgot what it was previously called, but it was basically barren. There was some sage that cursed that land, you know, so nothing grew there. So the Pandavas, it was a very unequal or, you know, right decision for the Pandavas, but they took it. And with the help of Krishna, it flourished. It became as Indraprastha, meaning like the place where it's similar to King Indra's of the heavenly planets. And Dhritarashtra, he would always play the victim. He would use his blindness to allow Duryodhana to allow him to make these sinful plans for killing the Pandavas. And he would say, oh, you know, if it's meant to be by providence, then it will come. And what's interesting is that he was the king. He had the power to stop these, but he didn't, because he was bound by the affection for Duryodhana. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, as well as the Pandavas, they were put into difficulties but they also accepted as Krishna's will. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was Dharmaraj, and he was bound by duty. And he avoided so many ways for the war to happen. So he said, I'm not going to argue with anyone, and I will always listen to my elders. So Shakuni, the uncle of the Pandavas and the Kurus, he was an expert gambler, a dice man, you know. And him and Duryodhana, they conspired. They said, you know, let's call Yudhishthira for a gambling match. And as Kshatriyas, it was their duty. They couldn't refuse challenges. And although Yudhishthira Maharaj knew that he was going to lose, since he was bound by duty, he still went. And none of the Kuru elders said anything. So he accepted as, okay, I have to do this then. So he was forced to. So first, before this, Yudhishthira Maharaj performed the Rajasuya sacrifice. It's where they go all over the world and they conquer the different kings. And they accept Yudhishthira Maharaj as the emperor. So Bhima went north, Arjuna went south, Sahadeva and Nakula, they went east and west. And when they brought back all the wealth to Yudhishthira Maharaj, it was incomparable. And Duryodhana, he was so envious of this. And he told Shakuni, as well as... Yeah, he was the treasurer too. And then he told Karna, he was burning with this jealousy that he was going to give up his life. So this is when they tried to use the gambling match. And first of all, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he gambled his wealth, everything that he had earned. And then Shakuni said, is that all you have, king? and Yudhishthira Maharaj, he said, now I bet my chariots, my weapons, you know, all of this, my elephants, infantry. And he lost that also. And then Shakuni said, is that all, king? You know, he kept inspiring him. And then eventually he bet his own brothers, the Pandavas, and he lost. And then he said, what about you, king? And said, I'll bet myself. And then he lost himself. So they were actually forced into being the slaves of the Kurus. And then Karna, he said, what about Draupadi? That was the last property that Yudhishthira Maharaj owned. And it was described that during this time, Draupadi was actually on her menstruation. She was wearing just a single cloth and her hair was not prepared, or it wasn't, it was in natural state. And eventually Dushasana pulled her by the hair and dragged her to the assembly hall. And then she asked this nice question. She said, if someone had lost their rights and is a slave, do they have the right to wager or to gamble someone else's freedom? And none of the Kurus answered. Eventually Vidura spoke up, you know. And so the king, he eventually stopped this. And then he said, the Pandavas, you get everything back. He wanted to test the character of Duryodhana and Yudhishthira like that. And then Duryodhana, the Ramayana or the Mahabharata is so nice. After the Pandavas went back to Indraprastha, Duryodhana and Shakuni, they asked the king to call them again for a second and final match. And Yudhishthira felt compelled to go again. And then finally they said, this is the wager. If you lose, you're banished to the forest for 12 years. And the 13th year, you have to be incognito. You can't be recognized. So again, they lost. But Krishna told Yudhishthira Maharaj, after the 13th over, you're going to get back your kingdom, and then all of the Kurus will be lost and destroyed. So they didn't give up, and Yudhishthira Maharaj, he actually depended on Lord Krishna. So in the verse, quotes Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-8, and the translation is, "My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim." And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes Sridhar Swami. He explains that just like a legitimate son, he's the son of a wealthy person. When he dies, he inherits the wealth. So similarly, we just have to die in Krishna consciousness, and then we become eligible to entering the kingdom of God. And I like where it says, while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds. And in the purport, it mentions three things. One is everything happening in our life, whether it's good or bad, we should take it as a blessing and ultimately the desire of Krishna. And two, the sufferings of a devotee is minimized. It's just a token of the real results or reactions. And three is that we're being purified of our reactions, and then we're able to go or enter the kingdom of God. And sometimes practicing devotional life, it may seem very difficult, you know. We're all individuals, we all came with some baggage from a previous life. But I like what Balaram Prabhu mentioned, that we should work together, you know. There's already difficulties in the material world, and so we shouldn't create any more in the ashram. Okay. So I think these are just some of the things I wanted to say. Are there any questions or comments on the class or on the purport and verse? Yes, Bhakti Chat.
Thank you for your lecture. It was like sugarcane. So when you were telling the story, it kind of got me thinking. Maybe somebody watching, you know, thought, these great souls are gambling. What's going on? You know, we have the four regs. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit maybe about when and how the four regs came about?
Sure. So gambling was actually allowed for the Kshatriyas, you know. And like I mentioned, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he didn't want to gamble. He knew he was going to lose, you know. But bound to duty, he went to this gambling match, and that's when he lost everything. But we shouldn't imitate this. We should read between the lines, which is that gamble can, Narada Muni in the Mahabharata, he said when prosperity is earned by crookedness, it is lost very soon. But when prosperity is earned through honest means, it plants its roots and it descends from generation to generation. And the Kurus, they were really bad, like if you read the Mahabharata. But Yudhishthira Maharaj, you know, he's Dharmaraj himself. So he, everything that he did was based on virtue, based on Shastra. So no gambling, Chad. We don't want to see you in the casino, okay? Say, no, this is for Krishna. We don't want to. Dravida Prabhu, did you have something?
Well, one thing I was just thinking about how, you know, as we know, there's relatively few of us. I mean, even the devotee people who are somewhat interested in Krishna consciousness are a huge minority amongst all the people in this city. But those who have, you know, taken the risk, or you know, taken full time, and as you said, you know, you're not getting paid and all this and that, you know. That's a gamble in a way. That's a because you don't really know what's going to happen. but somehow you become inspired to dive in. So I think that, Krishna is looking for that. Of course, it's a measure also of our good fortune at having our faith nourished by good association. And that's really what, makes you willing to take the plunge, and really surrender. So whether it's in the material sphere or in the spiritual sphere, there's a need to go all in if you want to get the real result. And unfortunately, the perverted reflection is this material gambling, which is just like a disease. And it's not an accident that it's one of the four eggs, because it's just as addictive as a drug. Many people know that. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, we put our life, gambled our life. You invested. You're investing. That's why I always love to quote that verse. There's no loss or diminution. That even if you don't succeed in this lifetime, it's in your bank account, so to speak. And so, you can't lose if you're sincere. You can't lose if you invest in Krishna consciousness. Mm-hmm. So.
And one thing that always inspires me is, I heard that there was some reporter, that was very challenging towards Srila Prabhupada, what if you're wrong? And Srila Prabhupada said, well, at least we lived a nice life, we're chanting, dancing, and also we're trying to help others as well. So he said, even if we're wrong, we lived a nice life. And most people, like that phrase, struggle for existence. You see it at Balboa all the time, the homeless population there. You see people's mind just troubled, And sometimes when people open up, it's just like Pandora's box, you can't get them to stop, So, so we're trying our best to be servants of the servants of the servants of the gopis. Anything else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, I have a question. May I?
Please do.
Yes, as you were explaining, let's imagine that a devotee, a neophyte, he begins the process of Krishna consciousness, then he's doing fine, but after some time it happens. Something discomfortable, very painful happens, and he was not counting on it because he was thinking, oh, I am doing just fine, nothing harmful is going to happen to me, but it happens. And then because it happens, he feels so disappointed and hurt that he gives up the process. He leaves the movement. So based on all of this, my question is, this mentality of abandoning the movement because something discomfortable happened is related to what kind of mentality? Kanishta mentality, Madhyama mentality, or Uttama mentality? That is my question.
Yeah, it's definitely in the Kanishta stage.
Why Kanishta?
Uttama? Because Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion explains that their faith is very weak and they're easily turned by, arguments. But I remember when Damodar Kumar Prabhu was here, he was our temple commander and Sankirtan leader. We had a meeting, and one thing I remembered was he said, you should find a friend in the ashram, one that you can reveal your minds to, maybe some difficulties. So I think just expressing one's mind to someone that they trust, like His Grace Rajendra Nandana Prabhu, he was a very nice person that some devotees wanted to, ask questions or have any doubts to, and he would give very nice answers. So I think, they are in the neophyte platform, like you mentioned. But a devotee that's higher than that, they have strong faith in the process, and they won't give it up. Balaram Prabhu, did you want to add something?
Yeah, it wasn't in relation to Vijay Krishna's question, it was in relation to Chad's question. It's an interesting question about the Kshatriyas and gambling, and then you have like the four regulative principles. I don't know, I can't remember if Prabhupada was ever asked this about why are the Kshatriyas allowed to gamble, because naturally some devotees might think, hey, well, maybe I could be a Kshatriya. You know, they seem to be having some fun that us, you know, initiated devotees can't have. But that people are, you know, eager to engage, or at least maybe wanting to find some, I'm not saying Chad wants to, but, you know, sometimes people want to find some loopholes, like, okay, that people are thinking like that and not taking on the duties of a Kshatriya. I mean, those are like really serious duties, what they were doing. With, you know, all the warfare and all that's like really intense stuff. But in relation to people taking vows, I mean, when Srila Prabhupada one time he was giving someone sannyas in Vrindavan, the Krishna Balaram Mandir, and he told the devotees, oh, you make a very elaborate ceremony, big yagya, and you decorate everything and this and that. And then Srila Prabhupada made a comment, and he said, in this way, this devotee, he will know that something is going on. In other words, it will leave a deep impression on him, that this is really serious. So that as it is, I'm sorry to say, but as it is, there's already a lot of devotees who are trying to find loopholes in relation to the four regulative principles. After vowing to a spiritual master, what to speak of if they didn't vow? I mean, you could imagine what people would be doing. Because if you do like a poll, how many devotees are, anyways, I don't want to, but people are trying to find loopholes with these four regulative principles very often. So that there's a formal vow, we could understand why there'd be a formal vow, one of the reasons why there'd be a formal vow, because hopefully over time people will, and hopefully in the beginning people will take that seriously. Yeah, but it is interesting because you don't hear about like Rupa Goswāmī or any of these persons. They're like they got initiated by Lord Chaitanya and they say we won't do these four things, or like Arjuna and Krishna. You don't hear. And much of Vedic or traditional civilization, there was a lot of predominance of mode of goodness, like naturally. People were like scared to break the four regulative principles. They thought it like very sinful, like ordinary people. And it wasn't seen as some divine thing to follow these four regulative principles, just like a normal, natural life. So that people are not like that nowadays, we can understand one of the reasons why there's an emphasis on, hey, you take these vows before the guru, before the spiritual, before the Vaishnavas, before the deities. But yeah, it's an interesting question. Just it's not a full, just a few thoughts in regards to that.
I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada. He said that Christians, they would use the argument that Jesus ate fish, you know. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna, Vijay Krishna.
Yes, Govardhana Prabhu, just if you allow me, do you mind telling me, because you described the face of the Kanishta, you said it is weak. Then you mentioned the kind of faith related to the Madhyama, it is stronger. What about the face of the Uttama Adhikari? How would you describe it?
Okay. I can read it right now in the Nectar of Devotion. Does anyone want to have a... Do you want to answer, Mukunda? Yeah.
To read the definition, the rubric for the three.
Mm-hmm.
I think he knows them. I think you just have him read them.
Probably got the verses right now.
Yeah.
Some to read the verses. He hasn't read them.
It's in the 11th canto.
I think as far as I remember, they have good faith in the holy name, but they're lacking knowledge, the Madhyamadikari. So their knowledge is not the strongest. But the Madhyamadikari have both.
Okay. So it says here...
Sorry, both what?
It says here, devotees may be divided into three classes. The devotee in the first or uppermost class is described as follows. He is very expert in the study of relevant scriptures and is also expert in putting forward arguments in terms of those scriptures. He can very nicely present conclusions with perfect discretion and can consider the ways of devotional service in a decisive way. He understands perfectly that the ultimate goal of life is to attain the transcendental loving service of Krishna. And he knows that Krishna is the only object of worship and love. This first class devotee is one who has strictly followed the rules and regulations under the training of a bona fide spiritual master and has sincerely obeyed him in accord with revealed scriptures. The second class devotee is defined by the following symptoms. He is not very expert in arguing on the strength of revealed scripture, but he has firm faith in the objective. The purport of this description is that the second class devotee has firm faith in the procedure of devotional service unto Krishna, but he may sometimes fail to offer arguments and decisions on the strength of revealed scriptures to an opposing party. But at the same time, he is still undaunted within himself as to his decision that Krishna is supreme object of worship. The neophyte or third class devotee is one whose faith is not strong and who, at the same time, does not recognize the decision of the revealed scripture. The neophyte's faith can be changed by someone with strong arguments or by an opposite decision. Unlike the second class devotee, who also cannot put forward arguments and evidences from the scripture, but who has all faith in the objective, the neophyte has no firm faith in the objective. Thus he is called the neophyte devotee. Okay, Vijay Krishna. I hope that helped. It went to Samadhi. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your time and attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.